The topic tonight is, why is it so difficult to find a good mate? That is such a broad topic. And as I thought about that, I wanted to bring it down a little bit. And so we're going to talk a little bit about one of the causes of narcissism. Narcissism is probably, I believe, one of the things, perhaps the thing that makes it difficult to find a mate. We are in a culture that basically says it's all about me. But one of the things that's very common in narcissism is envy. And I want to just tell you a few stories from my life to start this out. First time I can remember having an issue with envy, I was probably 11 or so, and I decided that I wanted to build a wild animal trap to trap rabbits and squirrels in the woods behind our house. I went to the library, I checked out a book, and I got busy building this little square box. I didn't get all the edges quite straight. At 11, I mostly followed the directions, trying to get that little door that would slide down and trap the animal when they pulled on the carrot inside. Well, I set that out in the woods. I put the carrot inside. I went to sleep so excited, anticipating what I would find my rabbit the next day. But nothing happened. There was no rabbit the next day. It was exactly as I had left it. Well, I thought maybe no rabbits went by. I'll just leave it another night. So I left it another night, and the only thing that happened is the carrot became a little more wilted. I decided I needed, maybe it was celery. Celery was what it was. And so I tried celery. And then I decided to try lettuce. And then I made sort of a Waldorf salad for nothing would attract, not anything. Nothing was bothered in this trap. Well, about that time, my older brother decided that he was going to give it a try, and he was going to build a trap. And so he looked at my book. He chose one of the more difficult traps to make, and he built a box, and the lines were straighter, and it looked much nicer than mine. And he set it out in the woods. And I went to bed that night, and I was thinking, well, if he catches an animal, and I've been at this a week, that is going to feel really bad. I better go out and make sure he doesn't catch an animal. So I went out and sprung his trap, and the door came down, and I slept very soundly. You know, one of the things about envy is that you don't want anyone else to have anything that you can't have. If I can't have it, I don't want anyone to have it. You know, I just want to pause right there. Something I was going to do starting out is to say for everyone to please take out their cell phones. Please put them on airplane mode. Study has just come out to say that if your phone is in your sight, or it's on your person or in your purse, that your learning and comprehension decreases by about 10% or more. So because I want you to have all the comprehension possible, I want you to please put that on airplane mode. The second thing I want to tell you is when I finish tonight, I'm going to have about a 10-minute pause. I really want us to think about what I've said, but also to be able to do your own business with God. It is so common that we hear a sermon. I mean, you've come here not to hear me. You really want to hear from the Lord. And as soon as we hear something, good or bad or indifferent, out come our phones on the way out, we hit them, and most of what we have learned is pushed out. And so I want to just give you a chance to sit after I speak and do some business with God. We all We all need that, and I hope that what I have to say is going to stimulate some of that business. So back to my story. Second story, not long after that, my father gave a compliment to my younger brother. My older brother was 2 years older than me, my younger brother 2 years younger. And he said this, he said, I can't remember what Mark did. Whether it was a math problem or something around the house, he figured something out. And my dad, who it was very rare to get a compliment from him, he said in the hearing of all of my brothers, he said, Mark is a genius. Ooh, I didn't like that. And my older brother and I just started counseling between ourselves how we might destroy him. A definition of envy: seeing the beauty, the virtue, whatever is noble in someone, and instead of admiring it, you want to diminish it. You want to destroy it. You have contempt for it. Because somehow you believe that you are being replaced or displaced. I'll tell you one more story, because envy actually goes both ways. The mic sounds a little bit hot right now, a little loud. So I go into my residency thinking everything is going to be just great. Finally, I found a group of people who are all going to be supportive of me. What I found was a lot of envy, competition with the smartest people around, everyone trying to feel special. I get out in practice thinking, finally, all of this competition is going to have stopped. I finally reached it. I'm out in practice. And I have a colleague who really doesn't like me. This is a colleague in the administration. He really doesn't like me. A few years older. And I can't figure out why he doesn't like me. Nobody really knows why he doesn't like me. And one of the physician's assistants finally decides he's going to ask him. And so he pulls him aside and he says, hey, why don't you like David? He said, well, I just hate his hair. I go to the stylist every week and I will never have hair like that. These are neurosurgeons. And so it is. Whatever is, I mean, it's genetic. I didn't plant my hair. To see something beautiful about someone, and instead of admiring it, you want to destroy it. You want to diminish it. You have contempt for it. Somehow feeling that because someone else has a gift or a blessing or something admirable, it diminishes you. And we're here to tell you tonight that that is a lie, a huge, huge lie. I want to invite my wife, Naomi, to come up, and she has a story to tell you as well.
When I was in high school, I had a very good friend whose name was Corina. We had the same interest. We even read the same books. And we had a lot to talk about because we had similar parents. After we graduated from high school, she went to study languages and I went to law school. But we kept in touch, even though we didn't see each other very often. After graduating from university, she moved to another country. But she continued to call me and kept me updated with her life, which I really enjoyed. one day she called me and she said, I had a boyfriend. And I was very happy for her. But soon I realized he was not a good man, especially when my friend woke me up in the middle of the night, weeping, crying, telling me he was cheating on her. Now, I tried to comfort her, we prayed together, but I had to tell her that she needed to end this relationship. And I said to her, Corina, you are such a beautiful, loving woman with a tender heart, and you love the Lord. You have high standards. Don't lower them. I thought she would follow my advice, which didn't happen, because she kept calling me sometimes during the night to tell me the same old story. He was cheating on her again. I was tired of this, and I was tired of her waking me up. But I realized something very interesting and important. She didn't have the inner strength to break up with this man. So I had an idea, and I said, Corina, let's pick a day to fast and pray together so that you'll receive the inner strength that you need to break up with this man. And you'll receive from the Lord a godly man who will love you, who will see your heart, who will honor and respect you. So this is what we did. And not after a long time, she called me back very joyfully, letting me know that she did break up with him. Now, some months passed by, and she called me, and what she said was very surprising for me. She had a new boyfriend, an amazing one. He was exactly what we prayed for. Now, as surprised as I was that she found so soon another boyfriend, I was equally surprised by my reaction. I couldn't be happy for her. I tried to, but the words wouldn't come. There was a knot in my stomach and pain in my heart. What about me? I was the one who prayed and fasted for her. I was the one who kept her from making poor decisions. She was the one who woke me up during the night. Where was my reward? She had 2 boyfriends in the same year, and I didn't have one. And now she had an amazing man, and I had no one. Now I want to make a pause to inform you how it's like living in Romanian evangelical culture. There is a lot of pressure to get married early. I mean in your early 20s. And the pressure comes from the parents, relatives, from the church, sometimes even from your friends and colleagues. It didn't take me much to realize that my reaction was not the reaction of a godly woman who trusts the Lord. But I didn't know what to do with my feelings. It took me some weeks to finally accept the reality and to have again good feelings for my friend Corina, who, not after a long time, announced that she will marry this man and she will bring him home to introduce him to her family and to me. I thought I dealt with this. But now that she's bringing him home, all these feelings are back. Anger, frustration, envy, jealousy. I had never actually dealt with them. I just pushed them aside. She invited me to her engagement party in our town, which I didn't attend, being too embarrassed of not having a boyfriend and being too afraid of the questions regarding this subject. I gave her a very beautiful bouquet of flowers and a special gift for their wedding, but it was too much for me to confront the painful questions that I knew people will ask me regarding my marriage prospects. It was hard enough to give this news to my own parents. There is a text in the scriptures that I believe talk on these subjects, and it helped me. And I will let David to read it to you.
So the text we want to talk about tonight, Matthew chapter 20, starting in verse 1. This is the laborers in the vineyard. This is one of most people's least favorite passage. And we're going to take it apart tonight, and I think you will see something beautiful about it. Jesus is speaking. He says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into the vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and to them he said, 'You go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you.' So they went. Going out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing. And he said to them, 'Why do you stand here idle all day?' They said to him, 'Because no one has hired us.' He said to them, 'You go into the vineyard too.' And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, 'Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first.' And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now when those hired first came, they thought they would receive much more. But each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, 'These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and of the scorching heat.' But he replied to one of them, 'Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give this last worker as I gave to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity?' And in the Greek, it is your eye evil because I am good? Is your eye evil because I am good? So the last will be first, and the first last." Wow, tough story. It's a tough story because it just seems really unfair. And I think it's a tough story because so many of us can relate. But let's look at the goal. What is the goal of the master? Well, the goal of the master, he keeps going out to get people into the vineyard. I think the goal of the master is to get as many people into his vineyard as possible. I don't think his goal is particularly economic. If it were economic, then he would probably have paid some of the workers less than the other ones. He didn't have to pay them. So his goal and the workers' goals are not exactly aligned. I mean, if he really needed the labor, he would not risk upsetting the first workers because they were good workers. They had worked all day. If the work and the workers were really so important to him, he would not risk upsetting them. He would have paid them more or paid the other ones less. So that's obviously not his objective. We also know he has the resources to be generous to the grumbling workers, but he decides not to be. So perhaps there is another reward in the vineyard besides this daily wage. So what is the goal of the grumbling workers? Well, to get paid. Rather than standing there, getting paid, some security. I'm going to make some money today. What we know from the research is perhaps even more than the pay, more than your salary, more than your income, is meaning. Did I make a significant difference today? And so the workers who were hired first actually got some significance for their day. Now, once we get that meaning, we also want to feel valued. And then after that, we actually want to feel special. And that's what happens when other people come in and we feel displaced or replaced. Now, the grumblers would have really liked a couple of solutions. There's some things they might have suggested. Number one, you could pay us more or you could pay them less. That would make us feel special. But that didn't happen. And there's something we're learning here about the character of the master. I recall when I was in my residency training, I'd finished, and after I finished, they suddenly said that they were doing a restricted hour work week. The new residents could not work more than 80 hours a week. Well, I was working, easily over 100 hours a week. I was up every third night, pretty much all night. So was that good news to me? And you can hear the statement, they came later and you have made them equal with us. These new neurosurgeons coming out didn't have to go through the training that I did, and they still get the title of neurosurgeon. Well, that just doesn't seem fair. But did I learn things on all those nights that I stayed up? Yeah, all the cases that I was able to do, I got a tremendous amount of training. I was able to advance probably to a level more quickly than someone who did less cases during their training. On the other hand, if I were offered an 80-hour work week, would I have taken it? Yes, I would have. And so there's a disparity. You can see where that's what I would want, but because I paid the price, I don't want them to have it. When the grumbling workers speak, they say, these last, like a term of derision. These last, these people that aren't worth as much as us. They didn't even use the word workers. These last, these people that just came in here didn't do very much. See, the first workers had a contract. They had a contract. Day's work, they're going to get a day's wage. They are going to get a denarius. Now, the other workers actually didn't have a contract. They had a relationship. They were trusting the master to give them what was right, what was just, what he wanted to give them. Now, what we notice about the kingdom, and this is a parable about the kingdom, is ultimately God doesn't want us to be workers in his field. He wants us to be what? Sons, daughters, children. He actually wants us to inherit the whole field. There's something actually really special that he wants to give us. It's much more than we realize, and maybe even than we want. And that is the irony, that the master is so generous that ultimately he wants to make you an inheritor of his kingdom. But most of us are just trying to settle for a daily wage or a little bit of pay or a little dopamine. The dopamine is that chemical of the brain when we get admiration, when we get a paycheck, when we get something, chocolate bar. That is dopamine. And so many of us settle for those little things when God wants to give us so much more. But there is a price on getting so much more. And I don't say it's easy, and I don't want to make it sound easy. Because I want to point out that this master of the house does something very interesting. I would even call it a bit cruel. He says to the foreman, I want you to pay the last workers first. Ooh. Now, had he paid the first workers first, they would have perhaps gone off and never have known what the other ones would have received. Now, why does this master of the house do this? I think there's two reasons. He's actually telling us something about himself, because what is vital in this kingdom is for you to get to know what the master is like. In that statement, do you begrudge me because I'm generous? Is your eye evil because I'm good? Ultimately, your design and mine is to be like the master. He's showing you his character. Now, he's actually doing something else, and I want this to be really powerful. This is a test. He's clearly testing these first workers. He's clearly setting like a trap for them, because his inclination, or their natural inclination, and mine, as I've just explained to you, is to say, not fair. Not, hey, wait a minute, not fair. I was here all day. How are you doing with your test? How are you doing with those other people that come into your life that seem to irritate you? They seem to take a little bit of the glory from you. Maybe it's their hair. Maybe it's their outgoing nature. Somehow the attention is moved off of you. You feel displaced. What do you do with those feelings? Well, let me tell you what I do with those feelings. First of all, whenever there's pain, whenever I feel pain, the number one step for me is to admit it. If you don't admit it, if it flies under the radar, you are going to be at a disadvantage. And I'm going to tell you something. Envy is like a light on your dashboard. It's telling you there's something wrong. It's telling you there's an imbalance. The relationship with God is not quite right. And for some of us, I know there are periods in my life, I had a lot of lights on my dashboard. They were all going off. And I just needed to try harder. And I believe so many of us use our phones, use our videos, use food as a distraction, as a diversion, because the pain of envy and displacement is so severe. And instead of confronting it and saying, ouch, this hurts. Daddy, I'm going to need some help with this. Am I displaced? It feels like I'm displaced. Is that the truth? In your eyes, am I displaced? Because I've been displaced here on the job or here in my church group, in my ministry group. Someone else has taken my spot, some of my limelight. I mean, let's put it in today's terms. Let's look at it as if you had been attending church for quite a while. And maybe you're a woman and there's a guy at church that he'd been giving you some attention. And you had some hopes, maybe he would ask you out or somehow become a little more interested in you, but someone new comes in. And within a few weeks or months, you suddenly see the two of them together. Ooh, that is not what you wanted. And you're certainly getting, maybe he still says hi to you, but his attention is elsewhere. And if you're a man, you can just reverse that. What are your thoughts? What do you do with those feelings? Because that's painful. And if we try to say it's not, we're lying. It's painful. It's painful to want something and to see it taken away. The tendency is to diminish the person or both of them, and this happens all the time. And I'm here to tell you that envy opens the door for the evil one to come in and destroy the people and you, because you're like a conduit. And it says in the Bible, envy, where there's envy, there is every evil practice. It will destroy you. It will destroy your relationships. And so one of the things about finding good relationships is we have got to deal with envy. We've got to deal with the past. We've got to deal with what is happening now. What is this all about? And how is my relationship with God, with the master of the house? So the first thing I do is say, Father, do you understand what it feels like to be rejected? I think God the Father knows all about rejection. I think his Son knows also a lot about rejection. So what you have there is the psychological term called attunement. They are able to attune to you in your pain. Many of us go seeking comfort before we get validation. We go to seek comfort. We go to the refrigerator. We go for the chocolate. We go for the video. We have to divert this pain, and we try to comfort the pain before we get validation. Is that reasonable that I would have this pain? You see, envy is the sin that nobody talks about. Oh, I could admit that I'm fearful, maybe even that I'm lustful, but I don't open up to my group and say, I'm feeling a lot of envy today. It's just not, everyone's like, something's wrong with you. And yet I believe it is the most pervasive of all the sins. In fact, we talk about the sin of Lucifer was pride. Ultimately, it was envy. I want what the Most High has. I want the good stuff. Envy basically says, God, you've given them the good stuff. You've given me the garbage. Not good for your relationship. Not good to be able to receive comfort from God. And many of us get comfort from food and many other places that are not healthy for us, because we're not receiving the comfort from the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, whose name is Comforter. You see, there is a counterfeit comforter. Satan loves to come and comfort you, and his comforter, everything good that God has a counterfeit. Satan's counterfeit is called self-pity. Oh, you see what they did? You deserve better. God is holding out on you, which was exactly what the serpent told Eve. If God were really good, he would let you eat from any of the trees. If he were really good, you would have that relationship by now. You would not have had that loss right now. And with the pain, it makes us very susceptible to envy and to self-pity. And if you are caught up in this self-pity, and I can tell you neurosurgeons are supposed to have everything they want out of life, but just like with you, I don't get everything I want. And just like with you, there's this little voice in my head that says, well, you know, you deserve better. You've been paying your dues. Whatever those dues are that you feel you've been paying, just like the workers in the vineyard. I have done this, so I deserve this. And sometimes we can ask God the why question. God, why? Why did you allow that relationship to fail? I remember clearly asking God that on several occasions, in tears. God, why? I wanted this. I thought this was the one. Why did you allow that to fail? And God doesn't usually answer our why questions. He typically won't answer the why questions. Occasionally, in retrospect, it becomes obvious why. But essentially, we ask why from a point of pride. Like, if you explain it to me, and it's a good enough explanation, I'll go along with it. And we forget his position, his master of the house, his God of the universe position, loving Father. We put him sort of into this, I really want a contract. I can't trust you. And because many of us have come out of families where our parents, our fathers were not trustworthy, we really would have rather had a contract. It sets us up neurologically to believe that God and me also need a contract. That God and I'm just better off with something contractual, I'm safer. But you can trust the God of the universe. So one of the things I also say is, God, Jesus, have you ever felt rejected? Oh, he knows all about rejection. In fact, that's like what was happening the whole time he's on the earth. If you remember, he comes to the triumphal entry, his big, like his wedding day. This was what he was hoping for. By the end of it, do you remember? He's in tears. He's in tears. We remember that Jesus weeps when Lazarus dies, but most of us forget that he actually wept at the end of the triumphal entry. So he knows all about rejection. We can go to him with our rejection and we can say, would you tune into me? Would you comfort me? I just want to pause right now, and let's just take a minute or so. I want to give you a minute or so right now, just to identify what subjects, what do you want him to help you with? What would you like attunement with? What situation, what relational issue? It may be a physical issue, it may be something else for you, but to say, do you understand what it's like to be X? I want to give you just a minute right now to just say, do you know what it feels like? And then allow him to come and to comfort you, to attune to you, to say, to really believe that he understands what that feels like. Because if you believe that you're understood, getting comfort from him versus comfort from something in the refrigerator is going to be much easier. So I'm going to give you a minute or two right now. So one of the things I want to add is regarding singleness. In my case, it took more faith every year to believe that it could happen this year. That if my faith just stayed the same as it was last year, I was actually going backwards. That self-pity would sneak in. I would start to feel like, oh, okay, everyone else gets this, but not me. Your faith has to grow. Your relationship has to grow, or you will slide. And envy is that light on the dashboard saying, your faith is going to have to grow. This is a test. The master of the house is paying another worker before you. Is that okay with you? What were some of the benefits of being there first? Well, there's a security of being in the kingdom. There's also opportunity for a relationship with the master if you want it over a much longer period of time. And that, according to the master, because what does he ultimately want for you? He wants you to be like him. And the only way for you to be like him is for you to know him. And so some questions you might ask in these situations is, instead of a why question, why did you let that relationship slip away? Why did you give this girl to this guy? You could say, what do you want me to do in response to this? Or how? How would you like me to praise you and worship you given these events? When I would go through a breakup, I would write songs. I learned a few chords on the piano. I was never schooled in that, but just a few chords, and I would write a little song or a jingle, like a psalm. And the psalms always start off with some sadness and some heartache, and then they end praising God. And those songs, when I would play those, they would lift me out of depression. God has very high standards. He wants us to be like him. You know, many of us actually don't want a Messiah like that. We don't want a father like that that's going to test us, that has these high standards. We want a father who's just going to give us the stuff. Yeah, me too. But actually, that's not really what I want. I want to have the character to bless those, to see someone else blessed and be happy for them. To see someone who has something that I don't have, a gift or something that I want, or even something that I'm praying for, and to admire it and to bless it in them. And that's what I would like for us tonight, because that is becoming like him. Ultimately, we're like him. We want to be like him. He wants us to be like him. And when we can bless, say, Lord, you are not a God of scarcity. You are a God of abundance. You actually have enough for her and for me, for him and for me. And I can pray for what I want, and if I don't get it right away, I can still bless those who have it. But you know what? Open my eyes to see the gifts that you've given me. One of the things that became apparent to me during the many decades of singleness was that when I got to heaven, God was not going to apologize to me because he couldn't find anybody for me. He was not going to say, oh, I found someone for everybody else. I could not find somebody for you. He was going to say something like, well, did you get any of the gifts that I sent you? No, I didn't see any of those gifts. I wanted a wife. That's all I wanted. Yeah, I was sending you gifts every day. You didn't get any of them. No, I didn't even see them. I don't want to be that person. That person standing there wagging my finger at him. He says like one sentence and I'm just, oh, you sent me stuff? So one of the things that I did regularly is a gratitude list. I had a list by my bed, and every night I would write down 3 things that I was thankful for. Psychological studies show that that will change your life. And just like many of you, eventually you want to take a shortcut, and you say, the sky is blue, whatever. You'll just start writing things. Make yourself write a sentence, at least a sentence, so that you can get your heart, get your mind into an attitude of gratitude, because gratitude is one of the antidotes to self-pity and to envy and to what we're talking about here, entitlement. And many of us in the church, and many of us that have a servant's heart that would come to an event like this, who love people, who serve people, who have the best intentions, we have a lot of entitlement. Unspoken, subconscious, but I've done this, and Lord, I expect, where's my pay? And He's testing us to see if we're getting any of the gifts coming our way. Can you recommit to praising and worshiping Him because He is worthy? And I'm going to say something else really powerful. Listen to this. Your circumstances are not a measure of God's love for you. That's going to come as news to some of you. Your circumstances, health issues, singleness, your finances, whatever is bothering you, is not the measure of God's love for you. The cross of Jesus Christ is the measure of God's love for you. And I can tell you that I began taking communion. As often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, there's another thing you can add to your regimen. Thinking about His suffering, thinking about His cross, meditating on that, helping me move out of self-pity, helping me saying, wow, He really loves me, focusing on the cross. What if the workers would have said to the master of the house, hey, can we work tomorrow? I want to work in your vineyard tomorrow. Would you teach me how to manage people? Would you teach me why you gave those last ones a denarius? How can I give gifts to people who maybe I don't think deserve it? How do you not enable them to hang out till 5 p.m. every day? Teach me how you give gifts. Teach me what you're doing. I want to be like you. I think the master would have had a different response than, is your eye evil because I am good? Take what is yours and go. He would have said, yeah, let me teach you. Come back tomorrow. You can work with me. I want to give you now 10 minutes. Let's just think about this. We need to get up and use the bathroom, but let's just keep a 10-minute silence. I want you to think, are there the lights of envy going off on your dashboard? We talked about what that shows. How is the relationship with God? Is there something, can you get attuned into Him, and then can you get some comfort from Him regarding what you have suffered? Because everyone in this room has suffered. And I do not minimize that. And then asking Him, what can I do in this season? Because I need more faith to go through this season. And I'm going to need even more for the next one. And I'm not going back. I'm coming after you. I want to work in your vineyard every day. Because the reward doesn't have to be the pay I'm expecting. It's the relationship with you. I want to remind you that eternity is a very long time. We are absolutely saturated in our culture in this live for the moment. Not the past, not the future. You got to live in the moment. I say you have to give thanks in the moment, but everything in the scriptures is about sending things on ahead. And we are losing that, folks. We're losing that. because we want what we want right now. And I want you to ask him, he's showing you, Jesus keeps talking about this kingdom. Where are you as far as how are you doing in the kingdom? Have you just entered it? And now that you're in the kingdom, you're in the vineyard, what is it that he wants you to do? Confession is one of the things I would recommend if you're not used to that. Just, Father, forgive me for my anger, my envy at this person or that person or throughout my life, or these colleagues, or their success. I notice that this is a problem in my life and I need your help. I need to admit and just confess this is an issue. Would you help me? About another 5 minutes, and I just want to leave you with this verse to meditate on from the parable of the prodigal son, Luke 15, where the father says to the older brother, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours." You're always with me. All that is mine is yours. You can ask him for what you want. If you're envying something in someone else, feel free to ask him. Feel free to ask him for what they have. Don't be embarrassed about it, but also don't insist that he gives it to you. But you're free to ask. He's a good father, and you're welcome to ask for what you want. Well, it's about 10 minutes, so I know that was, for some of you, very, very difficult. I know for some of you that was a real pleasure. Very tough for a speaker to stop speaking for 10 minutes, but I recall one time when after I spoke, someone came up to me and said, "Oh, I just loved what you had to say." I said, "Really, really, what was the best part?" I said, "That silence you gave us at the end." Because you've come here to hear from your Father who loves you, and I hope that I have been a catalyst for that. I just want to pray and bless you now. Father, thank you for everyone who has come tonight. Lord, I pray a blessing on their relationships. Father, give them the desires of their heart and the desires of your heart. Lord, we want to be like you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much.